survey from Adobe reveals that AI is revolutionizing the retail shopping experience. According to Adobe, GenAI traffic has grown by an eye-opening 4,700% year over year in July. Joining me now for more on this story is Vivek Pandya, Adobe's Director of Digital Insights. Welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me.
So that is a pretty big increase. What are the biggest driving forces behind that increase?
Well, we have a paradigm shift really happening where consumers are using these generative AI platforms quite a bit. We're seeing more than 30% of consumers have tried one of these generative AI platforms out there, and they're really leaning in on it to get an authoritative view on some of the best products they could buy. They're really trusting the responses they're getting from these LLMs, and as a result, we're seeing this influx of traffic. It was only about a year ago where the generative AI platforms were starting to let people link off from the platform to different sites, to retail sites. And as a result, we're just seeing the growth rate accelerate, and that's what gets us to our 4,700%.
So how are US shoppers using AI to help make purchase decisions? And if possible, are you able to provide examples of ways that they can interact with the AI to make the decisions?
Well, from what we're seeing in the data and our survey research, they're really leaning on it for ideation. We'll be in the holiday season soon, so Christmas lists, and then they move on from there to getting a sense of what's their criteria, what is the price range they want the products in, who's offering it at different shipping levels, free shipping, expedited shipping, and then they're essentially looking to see if where it falls in their price range given the inflationary environment we're in. So they're looking to see, can they find cheaper versions of goods? Can they ensure they're getting the best price and have all that information triangulated around value through the LLM and the GenAI platforms? Because what we find is that consumers have traditionally had a journey where they're opening up multiple tabs, they're having to do a lot of research, and right now the consumer is prioritizing value, speed, efficiency, and that's where the generative AI platforms are really shining.
All right, and how much is this increasing revenue for retailers?
Well, we're still quite in the early days of how this use case is being developed. So I would say in terms of the revenue per visit, that's really scaling as consumers become very comfortable ensuring, they're getting the right results, they're comfortable with the journey of going from the platform to the site. But I think what we're going to expect to see is as it becomes a larger percentage of the type of traffic that retail sites get, that's when it'll start to have even more of an incremental value on top line revenue. Ultimately, I think what we're finding is the consumers getting really comfortable with the journey, and the brands and retailers that are able to lean into that moment and ensure they're getting visibility in the responses, they're the ones that are going to win out long term.
And we understand that conversion, which are visits that actually become purchases, still trails behind non-AI sources, but the gap is narrowing. Why is that?
Well, I think the gap narrowing is really indicative of just the performance and the quality of results consumers are getting from the generative AI platforms. We're seeing many of these platforms be able to speak to the most recent updated pricing data, inventory, and that's helping the consumers get what they need when they hit the site. What's really exciting is once they land on these retail sites, they're spending more time on the brand sites, about 10% more engagement from AI source traffic, and they're bouncing off less. There's a 27% bounce rate advantage that generative AI source traffic gets. So ultimately, this is a real quality level of traffic that is growing and will be a strong vector moving forward for many retailers and brands.
According to your data, you're also seeing significant AI influence when it comes to industries like travel, banking, and entertainment. How is generative AI revolutionizing the consumer experience?
What it's doing incredibly well is taking a lot of information. You talk about financial services, complex purchases like computers, things like that, that require a lot of research and a lot of expertise. And it's triangulating all the information out there in terms of what the broader conversation is, what available information the companies are putting out there, what third parties are saying, and it's distilling that all down for the user so that it really kind of makes sense to them and they feel that the response they're getting is a quality one. And because of that, they're really willing to take the leap and take the recommendations and guidance of the GenAI platform.
And anything else consumers should be taking away from this study, Vivek?
I would say that for consumers, there's a lot of opportunity out there in terms of the types of generative AI platforms. They're obviously getting really comfortable with the massive players in the space and ensuring that they're getting efficiency. I think as they're exploring what they can do, the shopping experience is one that we expect to see continued growth and maturity in. They're maybe used to doing it for things like to-do lists, maybe some of them doing it for research and education, but what we're seeing is also an appetite to expand it, and that's why we anticipate this space to grow for many of these different types of industries.
All right. Thank you to Vivek Pandya, Adobe's Director of Digital Insights.
Thanks very much for having me.
Coming up, Felicia